Welcome, Sharon.
We'll start in just a very few minutes, like 2 or something like that. In the meantime, would you please mute yourselves?
And there we go.
I just want to welcome the new Yowers. I saw your name on the screen. So glad you're here. Dean and/or Olaf. Super. More New Hampshireites. Welcome aboard, Dale, also from Vermont.
Welcome to the third Wednesday worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Multiracial Unity Action Council. That long name we usually shorten to UUMUAC, which we ought to pronounce, I suppose, UMUAC, but we pronounce it UMIAC instead. We make that third U into an I. We say UMIAC. The service this evening is about Howard Thurman, featuring the Reverend Dr. Mellen Kennedy of the Springfield, Vermont UU Meeting House, and also her choir director, Julaine Diener, and also her administrative assistant, Deb Diegoli. I hope I said that right. The Reverend Dr. Mellen Kennedy is a Universalist minister and also a Sufi minister, Shiraga. She serves the Springfield UU Meeting House in Vermont. She also serves as chair of the board of the Inayatiya, a Sufi path of spiritual liberty. She is founder of Interfaith Bridge, an organization dedicated to cultivating friendship and understanding across faiths, particularly among Muslims and non-Muslims. She is also co-founder of the UU Small Group Ministry Network and teaches the art of sacred storytelling and extemporaneous speaking. I have a few announcements, which is to say mostly that I want to talk about the next service and the next preacher. The next third Wednesday service will be February 16th. And the preacher will be the Reverend Rick Hoyt McDaniels, and his sermon title is Liberal Religion. And if you got a link for this service from that email address there, richard3point@gmail.com, then you'll automatically get a Zoom link for that service also, unless you opt out. Do not hesitate to opt out if you don't want to keep hearing from us. All of our past services now we've succeeded in putting on YouTube, and the easiest way to find them is to just go to youtube.com, and in the search box at the top, type in Third Wednesday UMIAC services. And now I will light a chalice, and Mellen will give us some chalice lighting words.
And I just have one more announcement, Richard, and I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And if this service wets your whistle about Howard Thurman, you are welcome to visit the website of the Springfield UU Meeting House in Vermont. And our intern, Valencia, has created a section of our website, and I'm putting it into the chat box right now, about Howard Thurman, including some interviews with him, information. We're having a Howard Thurman discussion group on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays, and so much more happening. We have a whole series on Howard Thurman this year. So if you want to know more, visit our website. And that's it for my announcement. So shall we move to the chalice lighting, Richard?
Yes.
Okay. These words are from Howard Thurman. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself, what makes you come alive and go do that? Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. The wisdom of Howard Thurman. And the best way to understand Howard Thurman is to hear from his own mouth, to hear his own words. And as I mentioned a minute ago, on our website, we have a link to a couple of interviews with him, which are really, really wonderful. And so I'm going to show you right now, with Deb's help, just the first 4 or so minutes of the first interview with him. And I see a note in the chat box. Can folks out of Vermont participate? Yes, we are on Zoom. Everyone's welcome to our Howard Thurman series. I'll say more about that at the end. So here he is.
In that setting, and if someone came along, they would wonder what on earth was going on. But this had more religious meaning for me than the things that happened in church.
He has published more than 20 books and a considerable number of poems and
Can
pamphlets,
you start it at
many
the
of them
beginning, Deb?
reflecting
Just
his
at the
deep
very
personal
get-go?
mysticism.
Very beginning? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Right.
Yep. It gives a little bit of the background of who he is. It's really beautiful.
All righty. Here
Thank
we
you.
go.
Thank you.
Howard Thurman, once described by Life magazine as one of the 12 most notable preachers in America, is a modern black man. He is also a kind of universal spirit who has broken many racial, economic, and religious barriers and has become increasingly recognized as a special witness both to the worthiness of every individual and to the unity of all mankind. Numerous universities and church bodies have showered honorary degrees and special awards upon him. He has published more than 20 books and a considerable number of poems and pamphlets, many of them reflecting his deep personal mysticism. In all of this, he has attempted to speak through and above the noisy conflicts of nationality, culture, and ideology to what he has called the hunger of the human heart. In his crowded workroom library, we talked about his life and his insights into life. Dr. Thurman, sitting here in your study in San Francisco, on the edge of the Pacific, your mind must go back rather frequently to your boyhood in Florida on the shores of the Atlantic. What was your world like in Daytona Beach when you were a boy?
Well, there's several things that come to mind. The first is that I saw Barney Oldfield break the world's record in his automobile.
On that beach?
On that beach when I was a little boy. And he ran maybe something like a mile a minute, some phenomenal speed like that. But my world was surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean, the Halifax River, which is a lagoon of the Atlantic Ocean, and a large wooded area in which there were huckleberries, wild grapes, and rattlesnakes. A very happy combination.
And live oaks dripping moss, I suppose.
That's right. And in our backyard was a large oak tree, which was my companion and my comfort, because in the fall of the year, when the storms came up from the Caribbean, as we called it as a boy, the wind would tear the limbs from the trees, but my old oak tree would just move like this, absorbing all the violence of the wind. And we developed something so that I would go and sit with my back against the oak tree to talk to it about all of my problems. And I felt if I could ever get to it, then I could be heard, I could be listened to, and so forth. Now, the other part of my world of nature had to do with the dark nights and the quiet roar of the Atlantic and the stars that were so bright it seemed as if you could reach up and pluck them out. And I had a sense from my earliest memory of being a part of this whole rhythmic flow of life. And my earliest religious experience was identified with that sort of thing, so that I would talk aloud to God, for instance, in that setting. And if someone came along, they would wonder what on earth was going on. But this had more religious meaning for me than the things that happened in church. Now, that's the world of nature.
There was a church you were a part of, though.
Oh, yes.
Thanks,
I
Deb.
grew up in...
Thank you so much. I love these interviews with him. I would love to share the whole thing with you, but we're just going to give you a few little pieces tonight. And these interviews, Howard Thurman lived from 1899 to 1981. And these interviews of him were made in the years of his retirement. He retired to San Francisco, so sometime in the 70s. I don't know the exact date of it. So that you have a feeling for who he is and his talking to the trees and growing up in Daytona Beach and being completely in sync with nature and the ocean. So what better way to start our service than with this song, which Julaine is gonna share with us, and you feel free to sing along. I suppose I should say you'll know the tune.
I brought my spirit to the sea. I stood upon the shore. I gazed upon
It is the mission of the Unitarian Universalist Multiracial Unity Action Council to carry out and foster anti-racist and multiracial unity activities, both within and outside the Unitarian Universalist Association, through education, bearing witness in other actions, and expansion of our membership, both within and outside the walls of our congregations. We also seek to defend our UU principles against those who seek to undermine them. We envision our congregations, denomination, and society as not being colorblind, but color appreciative, as judging and treating members of the world's rank and file by the content of their character, not the color of their skin or their cultural heritage, and as treasuring diversity in the context of the beloved community. We call this vision multiracial Unitarian Universalism. This is the prize that we try to keep our eyes on. This is the mountaintop. This is the goal, the unity of the light and dark-skinned people of the world.
Thank you, Richard. To enter into a spirit of worship, I want to invite you to join me in prayer. And before I do that, I just want to acknowledge the presence of two of our collaborators on this project. Reverend Dr. Crystal Owens from the Empowerment Center in Cheverly, Maryland is here with us, and Minister Usher Moses, who is the senior minister at the Empowerment Center in Cheverly, Maryland, is also with us, and he also teaches at Howard University. And so, hello, Crystal. I see you just put on your camera. So this is a collaborative project between the Empowerment Center. This offering of the Howard Thurman series. It's an 8-month series that started in October and will go through May. So Crystal and Usher and myself are creating this together, along with Robin Ruffner, who is from the Atlanta, Georgia area. And we are taking turns preaching and offering a message. We all are deeply in love with Howard Thurman and his life and his legacy. And it is our great pleasure to create this series that we're doing through the Springfield Meeting House and the Empowerment Center. So we'll say more about that at the end, but I just want to acknowledge Usher and Crystal. So glad that you were here today. And so, but
thank you.
Yeah, feel free to chime in.
How's everyone doing?
Yeah, wonderful. So glad you're here, Usher. Super. So let us just open our hearts, our minds, our bodies in prayer. Take a breath and let yourself relax. If it helps you shake a little bit, get into your body and let loose of any tension. And open yourself in prayer. Spirit of life, great God, the source known by many names, thank you so much for the gift of this winter day. And thank you for this opportunity for us to come together. Great Spirit, you know that here on planet Earth, we're in a bit of a kerfuffle. Somehow we have forgotten our unity. Open our hearts, open our minds so that we can come home to our true selves. Thank you so much for the gift of the great spirits, the people that you have sent to planet Earth and who have lifted up a message of hope, of inspiration, of potential, of possibility, like Howard Thurman. These great lights who show us the way. And thank you for Umiak, this opportunity for us to come together and together to co-create a way forward, a way of harmony, a way of remembering our unity. Thank you for the gift of this hour together. May our hearts, our minds, our bodies be fed in this gathering so that we may leave here uplifted. We may leave here remembering who we really are, that we may find our way home to our true selves. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
And now let us be silent together to create an opportunity for prayer or meditation. And when I start singing this, please join me, but please stay muted. The Zoom technology doesn't allow for even two voices at the same time. But if you sing loud, you can hear yourself rather than me. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
So thank you so much, Richard, for leading us in that song. The medicine for our times. Are you feeling like you need a little bit of medicine? Are things a little bit out of balance and in need of some healing and harmony in your life? One of the most wonderful places to look for this medicine is to the life and teachings of Howard Thurman. So he was a mystic, a Universalist. He was born in Daytona Beach. His grandmother was a slave, and she was an enslaved African, and she was one of the most influential people in his life. And from this childhood of lack and limitation, he was not bound, but he went from there to become, as that little clip of that video said, one of the greatest preachers, one of the greatest spiritual leaders of his time. And he is one of the people behind Martin Luther King. Here we are, just having celebrated Martin Luther King weekend and Martin Luther King Day a couple of days ago. And one of the most influential people in King's life was Howard Thurman. And most of us know about King, we know about John Lewis, but a lot of us have not really heard too much about Howard Thurman. So we're going to do a little dive into his life. As well as being a mystic and a Universalist, he was a philosopher. He was a theologian, although he sort of pushed against that being labeled as a theologian, yet he was. And he taught at Howard University and was the head of the chapel there, and at Boston University. And he was one of the co-founders of the Church for the Fellowship of All Peoples in San Francisco. I love that name. That's the church I want to belong to, the Fellowship of All Peoples. And so he passed in 1981, and he has left this legacy. And as we experience the turmoils of this time, his life is a place to look for hope, for answers, for examples, for an exemplary human being. And I want to just pause for a moment and ask you to think about what ails us right now? What are the illnesses? If Howard Thurman's medicine, what's the illness? What am I talking about here? As you think about what's off balance, just in your own heart, bring up what that means, what that might mean for you, what ails us. I'm going to focus on just a few things about what I think are some of the ailments of our time, and Thurman as the medicine for it. When the whole virus situation started, where are we at, 22 months ago or something like that now, what really struck me in the first sermon I preached on it is we have two pandemics. We have the virus pandemic, but we have a fear pandemic. And I don't know which is worse, because when we are afraid, we actually are not very smart. When we're afraid, we're working out of the reptilian part of our brain. We're not able to access our higher thinking. We're not able to access our heart. Fear is a limited, contracted, it's a horrible place to live. Hafiz, that great Sufi poet, says, fear is the cheapest room in the house. I want to see you living in better quarters, my dears. And so Thurman's an invitation to come out of the fear and into better quarters. And in this time, one of our greatest ailments is our fear. And in Thurman, in that little clip we saw, he talked about growing up at the seaside in Daytona Beach, right on the Atlantic, and he would watch the trees when there was a storm, and he would see the tops of the trees being blown and branches breaking off, but he would look at the trunk of the tree and be aware of the roots underneath and realize it's okay, there's safety, that the violence of the storm does not impact the trunk of the tree and the roots, that there's a stability there, that beneath the externals, we can find a place of calm. And as a mystic, Thurman had the practice of silence, of waiting in nature and listening. As he described in that little clip, he as a boy, that was his practice, to go out and be in nature, to sit under the dark of the night sky and just listen, to put his back against the tree who was a living being to him, and feel that connection. He was not afraid. He knew that he was part of its natural world, and he was not afraid. And as I mentioned, one of the most influential people in his life was his grandmother, who was an enslaved African. And he told a story about her, that when he was a boy, he had a sister, so there were two of them, and his father died when he was quite young. So his mother was a single mom and raised him, as his mom went off to work, his grandmother was the central person, kind of holding the household. And so when he and his sister would kind of get off balance, his grandmother would tell them stories. And his favorite story was when they were enslaved on the plantation. And every so often, a preacher, also an enslaved African from another plantation, would come and preach for them. And the grandmother said, and at the end of every service, the preacher would stand up there and say, "You are not slaves. You are not worthless. You are not small. You are not somebody's property. You are a child of God. You matter. You are part of the divine." And Thurman said when his grandmother would tell the story, she would stand up and her back would stiffen and she would just preach it to him and his sister. And he received that story as an empowering experience. And he said, no matter what happened for the rest of his life, he was rooted in the significance of that. On the externals, he may look like a boy from the South, an African boy from the South, descending from enslaved Africans. He may look like a person without many opportunities or possibilities, but he didn't believe that. He knew that he was part of the natural world and that he was connected with the divine. So what is there to fear? So that deep knowing gave him a foundation and a faith. There's a saying, it's carved on a mantle in England. It says, "Fear not, faith answered, and no one was there." So when fear comes knocking on your door, when you respond with faith, you come from a place of strength and the fear subsides. So in these times where we are constantly being whipped up in fear, if we're tapping into the media at all, I hope you're not. I hope you're turning it off and minimal dose of it as much as you can. But as you're being whipped up into fear, Thurman is saying, don't fall for it. Find the truth of your being in your own heart. Know who you are. Know your value. Know the truth of who you are. Sorry. Forgot to turn off my phone. I apologize. Know the truth of who you are and know that you are connected. You are a child of God and you are part of the natural world. What is there to fear? So one of the other ailments of our time besides fear is the environmental crisis that we are in. Somehow we've forgotten that we are part of the natural world. We've forgotten our connection. And when we are disconnected, we are able to behave in a destructive way to the natural world. It's very harmful. So much of what we see around us that is off kilter, that is out of balance, that is tragic in what is happening in the natural world is the result of our disconnection. And so Thurman is the medicine. He's the guy who says, bring your spirit to the sea. Sit against a tree and know that it is a living being. Talk to it. Feel the wisdom of the tree. And those aren't just words. This is real. This is real. For Thurman, it was real, and it needs to be real for us. So talk to the tree. Befriend the elements of your environment. And for Thurman, walking along the beach under that night sky, feeling the power of it, it transported him to the infinite. It was a mystical experience for him. As he said, some of his most powerful religious experiences were in nature. Anybody identify with that? Many of us do. But it can't be a theory in the head. It has to be practiced. When's the last time you actually sat and felt the livingness of the natural world? Hard to do when it's 4 below, I know. For those of us up north, this is not the time to sit outside, but at least sit at the window. Sit at the window and look out, and go out for short forays if you can, so that you connect and you know how alive it is. So Thurman is the medicine for our time because he lived in that way. And one of the great ailments of our time is the divisiveness. Oh. Every group against every other group, and factions within groups that used to be harmonious. It's really painful, isn't it? To see the divisiveness in our families, in our towns, in our congregations, in the nation, it's so painful. So Deb, I would love for you to show now that second interview, the part 2 of the interview. It's minute 4 through 11, I think. So I'll mute myself here.
Within the tight circle of uniqueness, when you move down into it, what you do is you come up inside of every other living person. You don't go this way, which I think is the way of the sociologist, the political philosopher, but the way of the man of religion, it seems to me, is that he goes down in himself, and what he discovers there, he universalizes, so that when he looks into the face of a man, he sees his face. One of the middle-aged philosophers of the Middle Ages, whose name I don't remember, said that the statement, "Know thyself," has been taken more mystically from the statement, "Thou hast seen thy brother, thou hast seen thy God." Now this seems to me to be the essence of the paradox of my experience of myself, so that I'm always on the look out for the, to sound almost vulgar about it, I'm on my own scent all over the world. And my assumption is that if I can't pick it up in you, my sniffer is off. So I have to work on my sniffer because it's there. Now, when I feel this way, because I believe this, then I cannot escape the ethical necessity for dealing with you, not as I would have you deal with me, but dealing with you as I deal with myself.
Are you saying then that your ethical concepts are rooted in a kind of mystical experience, not just an intellectual, sociological judgment?
I think that's right. Um, it is what I experience of my own um, essence that gives me my clue to what life is about, what life is, and what life is about. Yes.
Now, does this experience go back very early in your life?
Yes, yes, it does. It goes. I think it really goes back to my childhood, and because I had to, I had constantly to affirm my own self in an environment that reduced me to zero, in an environment in which I had no standing, as it were, and it's.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you. These interviews are so wonderful. And the link to the interviews are on the website of the Springfield UU Meeting House, so you can log on there. I'll put the link up at the beginning. I'll do it again in a few minutes. But I just chose a few little snippets from it so you can get a feel of who this amazing man was. And I love that part where he says, when you meditate, when you pray, when you do the spiritual practices of really listening to yourself, to go deep inside yourself, you come up inside every other being. I love that. And I know that that is true. If we stay on the externals, and it's interesting, he says this way is a sociological way. That's a model for understanding humanity. But there's another model. There's the religious model. There's the spiritual model. There's the mystical model where you connect with your own spiritual core. And in there, you find the universal. You find the connection with every other being. And when you live from this place, it's not possible to look at someone who on the external looks different than you and judge or be put off by it. Because you know that as you are a child of the divine, as you are a sacred being, as you are a person with an interior of complexity and beauty and mystery, so is the other person. Mother Teresa puts it this way. She says her job is, she says something like this, I'm paraphrasing, is to go into the streets and every day see Jesus in all of his many disguises. So to see Jesus, to see the Buddha, to see the divine in the homeless person, in the person who on the external seems so different from you. And so Thurman is saying, don't believe it. Don't be deceived by the externals. Find the truth by finding it first inside yourself. If this isn't the medicine for our times, I don't know what is. There's so much hope in there. So as we look around us and we witness our world in turmoil, upset and fear, disruption in our environment, divisiveness among us humans, we can look to the life and teachings, the legacy of Howard Thurman, and realize there is a way through this. Dear friends, dear brothers and sisters, go and sit and meditate. Sit in nature if you can, or at least look out the window and connect. Feel yourself rooted to your legacy, whether it's your grandparents, as it was for Thurman, or your spiritual tradition. Feel not that you're just out there on your own, but that you are rooted. What is there to fear? And as you sit and meditate and connect with yourself, know the unity of all beings, the unitive consciousness that is our birthright as human beings. That's what Thurman lived from. And from that place, he came out of there and served the world. He was, as John Lewis said, Representative John Lewis, who just passed away last year, John Lewis called him a saint of the civil rights movement. And for Martin Luther King Jr., for so many people, Howard Thurman was the rock. He was the inspiration. He was the source. He traveled to India. He met Gandhi. He brought nonviolent resistance ideas back, and he shared that. And he encouraged resistance from this centered place of love, not to fight against and harm and destroy, but to go deep, find our common humanity, and from this place of love, attract other people to this harmony. It's not a way of pushing and violence, it's a way of attraction. It's the power of love. Thurman was a universalist with a small u. So how about you, dear friends? Where are you at in your life? Are you feeling contracted in fear? Take in Thurman's wisdom. Are you feeling hopeless about the environment? Take in Thurman's wisdom. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the divisiveness? Let Thurman's wisdom of going deep and finding the unity, let it draw you home to yourself and to our common humanity. I'm going to close this sermon with these words from Thurman, of course. We must find our place in the areas of new vitalities, the place where the old is breaking up and the new is being born. What a moment to be alive, and more importantly, to be aware. This is a great time to be on planet Earth. It really is. Rather than being dismayed, let us engage. Let us live from that deep place of love, which is inside of every human being. And in doing so, let us be healing vessels in this world. We can do this. As Thurman just said, the place where the old is breaking up and the new is being born. Well, the old wasn't working anyway, was it? So let's let it go. And let's let the new be reborn and be a part of it. The new from that place of love, from that place of connection with all human beings, with all beings, with all of nature. Let us live into a beautiful, just, harmonious, healed world building on the wisdom and the legacy of Howard Thurman. So I just want, since Usher, since you and Crystal are here and you are participating with me in this 8-month series that we were doing on Howard Thurman, would you like to add anything? You wrote something in the chat box, so please unmute. How Usher or Crystal, if you want to share some more words about how Thurman is the medicine for our times. He really is. I believe that from the depth of my being.
I want to thank you. That message was so vital for our spiritual growth and development. That message also, what I tried to say in the chat was, it was a salve to my spirit and to my brain. When you see what's going on around the planet, in our country, we are losing even that sacredness where we used to go to church and enjoy church. Family used to be sacred. That's no longer there. So the message of love and it's non-violence, because there's a lot of verbal violence in our community. There's a lot of verbal violence in our family. And that information that we're getting from everyone about Howard Thurman can provide that solve, that healing, that ointment to our souls, and get back to some level of harmony and love and balance and just giving and sharing. That Philly love, that agape love.
Mm-hmm.
It's missing. There's too much verbal anger, verbal discourse that is not healthy. So I'm glad we're involved in this. I'm glad that we're a part of this, because we can, I think this is going to kind of get into other circles, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and begin to hopefully do some transition in our community, go back to family and community and nation and love, and not in some sort of superficial patriotic way, but in a real loving patriotic way. But ultimately, this message can provide healing. It can. It allowed the civil rights movement to flourish and to get into the hearts of people until today. I mean, you have everybody talking about Martin Luther King. Because of Howard Thurman, that message is still permeating in our community. And even though it's maybe one day on Martin Luther King and a few other days, it's still important that we're able to do that. And somebody one day will have more Howard Thurmans, more Martin Luther's King, more Martin Luther's, to reform our community, to change our situation. So I'm thankful for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brother Usher. I'm really glad you're here, and it's wonderful to do this project with you. Crystal, do you want to chime in as one of the other people doing this project together with us? You're welcome to, but no pressure.
Well said in terms of your sermon. Thank you. I needed that. That was a boost, a spiritual boost that is needed during these times. And I was listening to a talk show today, and I was just dismayed by how the story talked about a woman that had her daughter living in her home, and the lady who was in her 70s, her 40-year-old daughter, locked her out of the house because the mother got COVID and was afraid that she would catch it. And how this discord is just separating families and really creating deep wounds that we need to heal. both mind, body, and spirit. So we definitely need these types of gatherings to give us hope and to stand in the gaps that people are struggling with each other and what have you. Yeah.
Thank you, Crystal. So glad you're here.
Thank you.
So let us move on. Now is time for the let's just go right to the offering, and then we have a special song. There's a Balm in Gilead to share with you. So yeah.
We don't actually pass a plate, but we urge people to look at us, to look at our website, to consider joining us. Our goal is to promote multiracial unity, and we are Unitarian Universalists, and to our horror, it has seemed to us that the greatest obstacle for multiracial unity in the UU world, at least, is the anti-racist ideology of the national officials, which does not emphasize in any way common humanity or the nature of individuals. Instead, it concentrates on groups. That is, it concentrates on labels. It fosters shame among white people and grievance among Black people. It fosters, it makes the color of one's skin more important than the content of one's character. And we are embarrassed and horrified by this, and that's why we exist. And if this is something that you would care to join, we hope you consider doing that.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. And we're going to sing "There Is a Balm in Gilead," and the reason that we chose this is a few things. One is that it was the favorite Negro spiritual of both Howard Thurman and Martin Luther King Jr. They both loved it. And in the biblical passage, it says there is no balm in Gilead. And this is saying, yeah, there is one. Yeah, there is hope. Yeah, that we can do this. There is a way through this. And so Julaine is going to play it for us, and I will put the words into the chat box, and so we can all mute and sing along.
There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead
Thank you so much to Julaine and the virtual choir of the Springfield Meeting House in Springfield, Vermont. And thank you to Deb Diegoli, who is our administrative assistant, who's here tonight to help out as well. And thank you to Usher and to Reverend Dr. Crystal from Maryland. So grateful that you're here, and to Yumuyak and to Richard. So let me close with these words that we started with. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Sit quietly and listen to your own soul. If you have found community here, treasure it. If you have found challenge here, and I hope you have, go and sit quietly with what is stirring in your soul. And if you have found hope here, bring it out into our bruised and beautiful world that needs you coming alive. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. And I'm putting the into the chat box again, the website of the Springfield UU meeting has a special section on Howard Thurman where you can catch those videos. We have the third Sunday of every month between now and May. One of us will be preaching on Howard Thurman at 10 o'clock Eastern time. You're welcome to join us. And in addition, I think I can do this. Let's see real quick. Yeah, here we go. This is the section of the Springfield UU Meeting House on Howard Thurman and who we are. These are the other members of our team who are not here right now. This has just been a fabulous collaboration working with these people. So you've already seen Usher and Crystal, who are here with us. Next month, Omid Safi is preaching, so it will be February 20th. And he is a total fan and devotee of Thurman. He's a professor at Duke University, amazing man. And then in April, Robin Ruffner from Atlanta, she and I will be preaching on Easter Sunday. And we will finish the year out with the amazing William Smitty Smith. He is the founder of the National Center for Race Amity. If you don't know about the National Center for Race Amity yet, check it out. It is so hopeful and so positive. So join us. And we also have a book group or a discussion group, the second and fourth Tuesday evenings, which I facilitate. So that's it. Time for discussion.
Yes, we don't have a coffee hour, but we hang around and chat about whatever people would like to talk about. I hope that you'll use the raise hand feature at the bottom. You'll find at the bottom of your screen, because it not only raises your hand, but it will arrange you in order. So I can call on people in the order in which they raised hands. And I see there is one raised hand right now of Finley Campbell, the founder of UMIAC.
I feel so blessed that we had this activity this evening. It really shows how broad ideas can flow. I had 3 connections with Brother Thurman. I think we both were Morehouse men. I'm never quite sure. We hear Howard University, I never hear Morehouse, but at least he was a part of the Morehouse College reality. There was this great teacher, her name was Ethel Werfel, who attended his church. She had been invited to come and set up a humanities program at Morehouse in the South in the 1950s, 1952. She was Jewish, or at least of Jewish culture, bit of a radical, University of Chicago hothead, and she was wondering whether or not she should accept this invitation to come and set up this program at Morehouse. And plus it was in the South. So she went to, like any wise person would do, went to talk with Howard Thurman. She had attended some of his church services, and the openness, of course, that was already been described. And so he invited her to come to his office, and she told her about the positives and negatives of being a white woman and an all-male Black campus in Morehouse in Atlanta, Georgia. We did have other white faculty members there as well. And out of that conversation, she told me later that persuaded her to at least give it a try. And there are about 150 Morehouse men who will always remember her and Howard Thurman's advice for him to come down there and introduce us to the humanities. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience with her. The second time was he spoke at the Atlanta University Convocation. I don't remember the exact nature of the sermon, but I knew that I did hear him use, instead of the scripture, he used a Greek playwright, either Aeschylus or Sophocles, on the nature of suffering. And he quoted this quote, which of course was sort of threw me off because I knew he was a Baptist preacher of some sort, which went as follows. At the time, man must suffer to be wise. And of course, that was really like, what is that? Where is that coming from? I mean, suffering, we want to avoid the suffering. And he sort of gave an exegesis on what suffering does to strengthen your life, open your heart, and make you wise. And I've never forgot that. When I taught the Aristeia, that idea popped in my head. Thirdly, I interviewed him. I used to have a TV show in Atlanta over WAGA TV. And of course, we're there doing the thing, what you do in an interview, back and forth. I'm a bit arrogant, and he's very patient with me. And we get into two issues. The first issue was about the nature of Jesus. And that's where that sociological issue arose. I said, don't you think it's important that we know exactly if Jesus lived or not? He said, well, I tell you, Campbell, Jesus is more important as a voice in the gospel. He said, the Jesus of the gospel, he said, is more important to me than some socio-historical Jesus that may or may not have wandered the seas of Galilee. He said, the words inflame my heart, something like that. And that is what I build upon. Then we dealt with the question of nonviolence. And of course, he raised Thoreau as an example of a nonviolent person. And I, with my arrogant self, said, well, yes, but you know that Thoreau eventually supported John Brown. So he wasn't like he was a total pacifist. He said, well, you know, that's true. John Brown was a part of the work. But in the end, wouldn't it have been better if Thoreau had been in charge of the Civil War than John Brown? I said, maybe. But at the Battle of Gettysburg, I'd rather have had John Brown. And he laughed and said, all right, clearly you're irascible. So those are my Howard Thurman stories, if you find them useful. He was a wonderful brother. I tend to be James Luther Adams myself, so I'm glad you have brought him back into my life. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much. And there are a few people here who have been participating in the series. I see Ray Reynolds and Yvonne Burton and Sharon Mueller, and I'm not sure who else. And of course, Deb and Julaine. So yeah, if you want to chime in about anything about what the series, oh, Anne Marie, you're here as well. So what the series has meant, and Kelly, or other thoughts, questions, other Thurman stories?
We're open to all topics here.
Roy,
Yes, Roy.
Hi, Richard. It's been about 15 years since I've seen you down at the mountain. Anyway, I could tell one thing that maybe most people don't know about Howard Thurman, because I have studied him. He found a mentor when he was in Rochester Seminary, and I think it was a Methodist church that he went to. But anyway, outside of the steps of the Methodist church, they were having a book sale that day, and he looked around and found a book that was written by somebody he didn't know about. It was Rufus Jones, who was a Quaker professor at Haverford College in Pennsylvania. And he sat down on those steps and read the entire book. And then he said, I have to study with that man. And he ended up getting a tutorial with Rufus Jones. And I say this because the influence of the Quaker quest for the inner light is a very important element in Thurman's own form of expression of his mysticism, that quest for the inner light. And he was nurtured quite a bit and informed a lot about that history of that quest throughout early Christianity, throughout the centuries. And so it helped give him a greater foundation to speak from. And so I'll name Rufus Jones as one of the mentors to Howard Thurman.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. John.
Yeah, I think that Dr. King, you said Thurman had both been at Howard and at Boston University. Is that right?
Right. Mhm.
And Dr. King, after Morehouse College for undergraduate and a Baptist seminary for graduate study, got his PhD at Boston University. So there might have been a real connection in terms of his studies there.
There was. King was doing his postdoc work, I think, when Thurman arrived. So they overlapped at BU for a short time, a year or two. But they did interact there, and he was very influential. Thurman was very influential on King, and actually Martin Luther King Sr. and Thurman were in seminary together. They knew each other back then. And one of the great stories about King and Thurman. So in 1958, when King was on his book tour, it was right after Montgomery. It was early on in the movement. I mean, King was shortly out of seminary, and he was not a known figure. He was just kind of coming into prominence, and the movement was starting. And you may know this, that on the book tour, he was stabbed and he almost died. A mentally ill person approached him in the book signing and stabbed him. And the doctor said if he had sneezed, he would have died. It was that close.
A Black woman in Harlem.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And so he was recovering in the hospital, and Thurman was in Boston at the time, came to visit him. And Thurman said to him, "How long does the doctor say you should stay there?" And when King answered, Thurman said, "Add 2 weeks to that." He said, "What you need to do is take care of yourself, and you need to go deep inside yourself, do that work, connect with your purpose. And from that place, then go out into the world and do the work." Because what Thurman was concerned, that the movement was, it was burgeoning then, and it was getting so big, he felt like it would overwhelm King. He was very concerned about King's well-being, and that he needed the time to pull away from it and connect with his heart. So from that place, he could go out and serve. And so as you may be, and basically Thurman was saying, the calamities of our life are also opportunities, if we treat them as such, to reflect. And so in your own life, you may be in a situation as King was, in a situation in this virus time of things are not like you want them. But can you use that as an opportunity to connect with yourself and your purpose, and from that place go out and serve the world? Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and then go do that. So that that was a real life connection between King and Thurman. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions, ideas, what anything?
Deb? No, Deb has her hand up.
Oh, okay, great. And then
Yes, I just wanted to comment, after having been part of helping put on our series with Howard Thurman, and how great it is. It's just been wonderful to have Crystal and Usher and Robin, along with Mellen, presenting. Like a lot of people, I didn't know much of anything about Howard Thurman. I've heard his name. I've seen the poem, The Work of Christmas, a few little things like that. But I really didn't know that much about him, and I've gotten to learn so much. And I am really impressed with his connection with nature and that expression about going down inside so far and so deep within that you come up inside the other person. I think that's just a wonderful concept, and I'm really working hard at it. I'd like to enjoy anyone who's interested to join us on the third Sunday of the month, as Mellen said, and also for our discussion group, which is on Tuesday evenings, the second and fourth Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. on Zoom, and the link's right on our website.
Eastern time. Yep.
Thank you. Right, Eastern time. Have to remember.
John, I see you have your hand up.
Statement of from crises are opportunities. This crisis of COVID that keeps us kind of apart. I led a group Sunday where we had people from Maryland and Texas and Ireland. And we wouldn't have had all those people together in a non-COVID time. I'm sure the Irish wouldn't have come this far. And in fact, one of the Irish said, what's wrong with America? And then the rest of us chimed in quite a bit. But that was a fellow who subscribes to the Irish Times, the Guardian out of England, the New York Times, and papers in Germany and Spain. So he's pretty well educated Unitarian there in Cork City. So we have people of other denominations as well. So, it was good. It was good that we had this opportunity with Zoom that we might not have thought of before COVID.
Thank you. Father Campbell.
I appreciate my new name. I think that
If I could interrupt for a minute, I was telling Finley that the Universalists, who used to refer to one another as brother and sister, when a Universalist minister became venerable in age and very well respected, he tended to be called Father. And so I said, Finley, we should call you Father Campbell.
I accept that coronation. That's what I want to hear from. And Jack, did you hear that? That's what I want to do. Thank you all again. So much of richness came out of this presentation. Could you put up in the chat if you had to recommend the best introduction to Howard Thurman's theology? I'll use that word. And what is that called? I can see it vaguely, but I just can't.
For the Inward Journey.
For the Inward Journey.
And this is an edited book. I think it's his daughter who edited it. So it's a collection of his writings. A lot of them are short writings. Don't get it confused. There's another book which is just called The Inward Journey. It's not that one.
Okay.
This one is For the Inward Journey. And this is what we're using as the touchstone for our Tuesday night discussion group. It has a lot of very short pieces in it, just a page or so. And so we're just kind of taking some of them and diving deep with them because they're so rich.
And secondly, I think that from when I'm here with Thurman, Howard Thurman's vision and Martin Luther King's vision, how they went from the inner world of the Black experience into the U.S. the Southern experience, then the national experience, and the trip to India, the international experience. And to that degree, I think UMIAC is trying to follow in that path. In October 2022, we're having an international conference against racism, built upon the vision of one of our ancient founders, Michael Servetus. And hopefully we will make available to those who are interested a copy of our flyer, which will be circulated. Anybody who would like to get one, you can just contact us through our umiac.org area, and we'll give the information about the conference coming up. And we hope to bring a large number of people there physically to Geneva, Switzerland, as well as having it online. So these ideas are flowing and flashing, and they're needed at this time. The idea of multiracial unity is absolutely needed, especially within the Black community itself.
And our final speaker for our 8-month series in May is going to be William Smitty Smith, who is the founder of the National Center for Race Amity, which is in the Boston area. And Smitty says there are two traditions. One in America. One is a tradition of racial disharmony, and that's what we hear all about. At the very same time, there is another tradition of race amity,
Yes.
of people of different colors who have worked together, who have worked for justice together, who have had fun together, who have been best friends, who have built things together, who have created music and love together. And we always hear about the one tradition, but what about the other one? So the Center for Race Amity, William Smitty Smith, our speaker on the third Sunday in May, he's fabulous. He'd be a great speaker for your event, Finley. He would be fabulous. He really, he's a Baha'i, and he's
Well, that we have a beautiful temple here in Chicago area.
yeah, he's amazing. So I recommend that you check out their website. They also have a conference. It's gotten just because of the COVID time, it's gotten disrupted. It used to be in the fall. I don't know when. I think it might be the fall again this year. So.
All right, what's the name of that organization? One more time, please.
National Center for Race Amity, and they have some films that they've made. Smitty Smith is a filmmaker. He has a PhD in education, and some of their work is actually on public television. I mean, the quality of their video work is amazing, and just showing and demonstrating examples of race amity, people we haven't heard of. And why haven't we heard of them? You know, people in our history who have lived amicably together and created wonderful things. So check it out.
All righty. Thank you.
Mhm.
And someone, Roy in the chat box is saying another good book is With Head and Heart, Thurman's autobiography. Yes. Yeah, there are so many. He has about 20 books. So whew, it's a lot. Yeah.
Are we done?
I'm wondering, so if any of the other people who are participating in the series want to chime in. I see you're here, Anne Marie. Yeah, Anne
I'll
Marie.
say something. Yeah. So, I've been following the series and reading more and more. And as Deb said, started out not knowing a whole lot about Howard Thurman, but through the grace of your inquiry and sharing this, I truly believe that this is medicine for our times. This is the work that any of us who are well-intended and on the earth at this time, that we find a way to use our good intentions and our good hearts to support each other for unity consciousness, for unity in our well-intended work. And I applaud you, Richard, for doing the work you're doing. And I'm so glad to know, and it inspires me, like the balm of Gilead. I feel like I have that when I am talking to folks who are doing this good work. So I just want to say I'm very moved, and thank you for your good work tonight and always.
Amen to that.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Oh, David, yes.
Well, I just want to say that, it's a delight to feel uplifted. And it had become rare in my UU journey to ever feel uplifted. And here in this group, but especially in this sermon tonight, I got that back. And it feels like, I was going to say love is in the room, but I guess this is a different kind of room. And,
in the Zoom. Love is in the Zoom.
But sermons that don't have that magic, where you feel like you're welcome in a room full of other loving beings and discussing something are just not the same as ones where it is. So I really appreciate the sermon tonight. I guess it's that bomb everybody talks about.
Thank you, David. Well, join us anytime. We're all about upliftment. That's our specialty.
John.
The UUA has something called the Common Read, and it's been the same book for the last 5 years. I mean, it's got different authors, different titles, but you know, Richard knows what side it's been on this CRT stuff, and you know, it's always been on the same side of and the same subject for the last 5 years. I don't know that we have an uncommon read yet, but I think, you know, we should either get the UUA to come up with a different book for the common read, or we should come up with an uncommon read.
Good. Yeah.
Well,
I have a suggestion.
RBG.
Conversations with RBG. And it's with Jeffrey Rosen, but Jeffrey Rosen's smart enough in this book to have 3/4 of the words from Ginsburg, because while Rosen's a good author, Ginsburg's use of words is just, you know, astounding. So I would recommend that one for an uncommon read. It's a little different from the CRT stuff that we're being fed for the last 5 years.
You know, it's interesting what you're saying, John. For myself, I'm interested not in fighting against anything. I sort of don't care what the UUA is doing. You know, I just ignore it. I don't want to fight against the UUA. To me, it's a drain on my time and my energy and my life. All I want to do is build the new world. I want to unite with all of you. I want to unite with William Smitty Smith from the Race Amity Center. I want to unite with the folks at the Empowerment Center in Maryland and from Still Point in Georgia, and just, you know, work toward building a harmonious world together where we transcend the externals and connect from the depth of our being. So personally, I don't care about the UUA. I just care about creating the new world. As Thurman said, the old is breaking down, the new is being born, and here we are, and it's beautiful. We're doing it together. Lots of hope.
Finley.
As much as I support your general vision, we must never forget that, as the President of the United States pointed out, we're reaching an inflection point where your dream of wanting to bring people together will definitely be under siege. The inflection point, the elimination of our voting rights, the building up of racial animosity, the use of literature and art to keep us divided. This is a standard practice for a very long time, beginning with the first time that slavery was introduced in Rome. So we gotta be careful. We want that balm in Gilead, absolutely, because sometimes we'll get discouraged and think our work's in vain. And there are people who are working very hard and diligently to make us think this kind of work is in vain. So my job is to be the fighter, you be the lover, and together we come together to form the great unity of Thoreau and John Brown, my sister. Thank you for
Sounds
being
great. Good. All right, Father Finley, gotcha.
I'm out of here. Blessed be to everyone.
Right.
That might be a good note on which to
Nice to meet you.
say goodnight.
All right.
If
Thank
that's
you, everyone.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.